Alright, we're live on Facebook and live on Instagram, so just thought I'd go live while I'm traveling. I am in Naples, Florida, so hello Naples. I know a lot of people live in Naples, so I can't ever go into seat to table without at least 20 or 30 people coming up to me and recognize me. That's kind of cool. But also South Florida, great place. Except for obviously your hurricane seasons, but anyway, it's beautiful weather down here. It's already getting hot down here, super hot. But anyway, I wanted to go live while I was here. I love it down here. Of course, I'm in my hotel, so I obviously don't have the greatest background, but I try to get some of the window in here, and been watching some pretty big alligators. I got a big alligator on camera and video in this little pond / slough right here by the hotel, so it's really cool. But I mean, I'm talking about like a big alligator. So just wanted to go over. I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible. I don't know how that'll last, but we'll see. But just some of the updates that you've seen this week. And those of you who are in South Florida, I will be at Trump Doral starting tomorrow through May the 4th. So if you're going to be there, then I will definitely see you there. And also, before we get going really good, I like to take my hat off for Michael Jaco, who lost his son unexpectedly this past week. So I don't care what you think about some people. Some of you out there are always questioning why I'm going to certain events, why I'm on certain shows, and I'm like, well, I don't judge certain people, and I'm open to certain people. If they're talking about God, Christ, love, and military, and so anyway, do a memory for him. So my condolences to Michael Jaco and his family for what they're going through right now. I can't imagine. I don't have children, so I don't know what it's like to lose a child, but I know people who have lost children, that's where we have to put our differences aside. If you have a difference, live and let live. No doubt when there's something that's clear and you can tell someone is, evil, bad, whatever it may be, okay. But too many people are still trying to judge certain people based on things I don't even know about. So if you will, make sure to comment or go over to his page and comment, your condolences to he and his family. But for what condolences are put on the page here, I'll make sure that he sees those as well. But so anyway, over back to obviously what's going on right now. I know a lot of people are still confused. I know a lot of people are I hear the comments, I see the comments, and I'm cool, calm, collective, and I'm also trying to be quiet because I'm in a hotel. No telling who can hear what, you never know. But we are in the mellow stages anyway. It may not seem that way or look that way or feel that way to some of you, but we are in more of the golden age, more of the mellow stages going into that than it is anything else. Where I'm at now in my life, really, in reality, my sole purpose now is just to show people what President Trump did, how the military pulled it off lawfully, and then also the world leaders and leaders, because really we're in the aftermath of it now in another kind of way. I always hold up the ball cap 45-47. The whole thing is an operation. And too many people, God love you, too many people in my inbox and the comment boxes are still trying to treat everything as a real time. Real time. It's real in another manner, but it's a special operation lawfully. Every single thing that is put together that you're watching was done lawfully, and it has a blueprint with a chronological order of laws and orders. And if every person who claims to be a patriot, claims to be a Republican, claims to be a conservative, claims to be neutral, if every person who loves this nation and wants to see it thrive and wants to see, if every single person would read the blueprint of the laws and the orders that made it possible for this to take place, that would be all you would need. You wouldn't have to sit all day long and listen to podcasts if you don't want to. Because a lot of the people are just your surface level and or regurgitators and or Hansel and Gretel, throw you a crumb. But it's also drama and propaganda. I hate drama. I know a lot of people who claim they hate drama too, but a lot of people who claim to hate it, they love it. So I try not to say I hate drama, because the same people who say the same thing end up either doing it or loving it or creating it. But, you know, I don't like going to certain events where I know there are wolves in sheep's clothing. I don't like going to certain events where I know there's someone that you know, isn't good, or they're just a regurgitator, or they don't know what they're talking about. But how will we ever get to the real people? If Daniel didn't go into the lion's den, how do you get to people? So my sole purpose where God put me, I know it, is to show people the foundation of the laws and the orders. That's why I tell people, quit judging certain people. You don't worry about that. If they ain't hurting you physically or even emotionally, don't judge them. All right? So it's a special operation. I was in a dream the other night. It was so funny. I was in a dream and I had this guy, a big guy in my face, and he was taller than me, and I'm right at 6'5". And I had this tall guy in my face in my dream, and he was in the military. He was active in the military, and there I was, retired veteran, and I was just sitting there. He was fuming and he was flexing, just like guys, you know. He kept getting mad, and I was right in his, I wasn't in his face because he was taller than me, but I was up there going, same Title 10, bro. Same Title 10. Why you mad? Why you getting mad? It's the same Title 10. You swore in under the same Title 10. Why you mad? How come you don't know your own laws and orders and what you're serving on? I kept just egging it on. And no matter how much you hate me, no matter how much you loathe me, no matter how many people try to frame me, fraud me, ridicule my laws and orders are still there. The same laws and orders that President Trump put into place way back here, the executive orders, why did Joe continue them? Why are they still there? Why did Joe, Obama, Bill, Hillary, Bush, all of them, Jeffries, AOC, Sanders, why did they all hand him back over 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies that are all the executive orders being enforced, cleaning out the illegal migrants, which migrant, temporary, not immigrants, migrants. All right, Doge. Every single executive order that Joe continued, it's the very thing that's the liberals are losing their minds over right now. So why did they just hand it? Here you go, President Trump. Here's your executive orders from back here in 2017 to 2020. Here you go. We didn't touch them. We had Democrat control of the House and the Senate from 2021 to 2023. We didn't do anything, though. Here you go. Your tariffs are still in place that you put into place in 2018. Here you go, President Trump. Here it is. So I got my notes over here. I'm going to look at what I'm going to talk about, what you've been seeing in the last week. All right, people, I still get messages, comments. I don't see anything happening. When are we going to see something? If you're that person, God love you. You know you don't have a foundation. If you're on my page and in my inbox of all people, you could be saying that on a bunch of others out there, but if you're on my page and in my inbox saying, when are you going to see something? you're misusing my page. I have everything. Now, if you're brand new, I'll give you a hall pass. All right, here's your hall pass. What you need to do is keep scrolling. Scroll all the way to the very first post on my page, way back in September 2022, and work your way up. Don't start from today and work your way down. Flip it. It's going to take you a while to scroll because I've done a lot of posts and a lot of pictures. Go to the very bottom of Facebook or even Telegram. All right, those are my two oldest pages. All right, I didn't start a Twitter or X until I think 2023. But go to the very first post and work your way up and study. And it depends on where you are with your level of learning and also your glossary and what you've already known versus what you didn't know. That's up to you. But if you'll do that, and if you'll go back to President Trump, 2017 to 2021, he had all kinds of capitulations where all these nations capitulated to him. All right, that wasn't just the 4 years talking to those leaders. 45-47 is a strategic operation. Though that's the imagery, that's your image. 45 had its layers, the dash had its layers, and now 47 will have its layers. In every other time period in history, yeah, there's been laws, yeah, there's been executive orders, yes. But there was a line drawn in the sand, and there is a strategic blueprint that is formed that they are operating with. And there's a few fallbacks, meaning there's some things that you can just always fall back on. If you're the person out there who's listening and watching, and you got your friends and your family, and they're right on the fence with you, and they're like, I don't know if I believe that. You go, well, here's 3 things, or 4 things, 5 things, whatever I give you. But here's some fallbacks. These absolutely prove military operation, military government. All right, so let me make sure I cross off stuff as I talk about it because I don't want to double back at it. So in 2017 to 2021, President Trump, they cleared out, they reset the legislative branch. That's Article 1 of the Constitution. Is your legislative branch. The dash was resetting of Article 2 of the executive branch. And now what's dominating all the topics? Judge this, judge that, judge this, judge that, judge this, judge that. The judge did this, the judge said that. A judge did this, the judge. Judges. Article 3 of the Constitution is being reset right now. So you have to know those things. So, anyways, I was getting a message from something. So you have to know those things. They are cleaning out Article 2, well, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, resetting those. And the laws and the orders outline that. The laws and the orders outline, when you look at 2017 to 2021, and you look at 2021 to 2025, and you look at what started 2025 now, which will be 2029, all the laws and orders and all the actions around it more than outline what took place in 2017 to 21, legislative, 2021 to 2025, executive, and then 2025 to what will be 2029 will be judicial. It's all there. So when you know that, then you go back to 2017, January the 17th, 2017, 3 days before President Trump took office, the Federal Continuity Directive 1 came out by FEMA. Federal Continuity Directive 1. On June 13th, 2017, Federal Continuity Directive 2 came out. Those are your umbrellas of a continuity government, continuity operation. And they're long, and they're not going to make sense if you've never heard any of that language before. But a continuity of government accompanies a presidential emergency action document. That's why President Trump, that's why he quotes Eisenhower all the time. Presidential emergency action document expands the power of the president. So when you hear someone out there saying the president cannot lawfully serve past 2 terms, yes, he can. Yes, he can. Presidential. And if Congress had an issue with it, why did they keep it around all these years after Eisenhower? So see, all President Trump, in a real-time setting, all President Trump would have to do is say, hey, why'd you keep this on the books for all these years? If you don't want me to use it, why is it in law? See? It's real simple. So he quotes Eisenhower all the time because a continuity of government accompanies a presidential emergency action document, and a presidential emergency action document has a continuity of government. So what are the odds that a new one was written and put out into place in 2017, 3 days before President Trump took office, and then 3 days before his iconic, biblical, monumental, historical speech where he said, we're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. And the moment he said that, the military huddled down behind him. All these soldiers walked down, these officers. And then the headbands, military intelligence and judge advocate generals. The only 3 things that were consistent with Biden. I know he was fake. I know he wasn't real. Puppet government, government in exile. All right, it's a World War II tactic. The only 3 things that were consistent with Joe Biden were these. Out of all things, out of everything you could have seen on TV, etc., news, etc., when they showed an officer around Joe, the insignia was either military intelligence, judge advocate general, and then they threw in a 3rd one that validates the puppet state and the government in exile, which is a special operation, all right, from World War II. Puppet government, they used those in World War II. All right, we did, the United States, with other nations. They threw in a 3rd insignia that more than validates it. It's already in my printed books. It's already there. Civil affairs and psychological operations. Those sound like 2 different things. It's not. They're together. So there's 3 things. The insignia of civil affairs and psychological operations. All right. When you go back to World War II, the puppet government that was used with the Philippines, what did Japan do? They installed a president when the United States capitulated. Well, it was really Philippines would be the right terminology. The Philippines capitulated to the United States, but when the capitulated nation president came to stay in D.C., President Quezon, Japan installed a president for the Philippines. You know what they call that? Roosevelt had control of Quezon's military, and Quezon had full control of the Filipino military, his military. Japan and the faux, F-A-U-X, the faux president, the fake president, he only had control of civil affairs. So that's all you need to know. All right, that's why on January the 1st, 2021, it's important to know that under FEMA, under these new continuity directives, FCD1 and FCD2, there were about 10 publications put out. On January the 1st, 2021, one of those came out called Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. Well, Reconstitution of the Executive Branch, do your math there. 3 weeks before that, President Trump signed Executive Order 13961, which invoked a continuity of government. That's your federal mission resilient strategy for the executive branch. So, again, 2017 to 2021, legislative branch, Article 1, resetting. Then you have President Trump's executive order 3 weeks before that continuity directive came out on January the 1st, all right, which was called Reconstitution. Reconstitution definition means to set something back to its original state. So they're telling you the executive branch was not in its original state. That's what they're telling you. All right, so that's why that's important. All right, and then also inside of that Reconstitution publication, it talks about when Congress cannot establish a new seat of government, Congress and the states, with their enumerated powers, will get together to reestablish a new seat of government. Well, what did President Trump just call April the 2nd this year? What did he call it? He called it Liberation Day. Well, April the 2nd in our history was the Coinage Act. It's when they made silver the lawful tender money. And what was the lawful tender called? The seat of government. So you can't make this stuff up. Now, the issue is that people will stumble across me and they'll stumble across one video. They don't see all of the 2017 to present day blueprint. But when you take the 2017 to present day blueprint, the whole thing that I already have time-stamped in books, I mean, the fact that all of these things fell on all these dates in history, you just can't make that up. And then sometimes it falls on the actual day, the actual day of. So like Memorial Day this year is on May 26th. Well, May 26th, 1783 was the date that our founders celebrated the end of the Revolutionary War. And they call it the Great Jubilee Day. And President Trump's giving everybody a marker. For the last 2 and 3 years, President Trump said by Memorial Day 2025 to July 4, 2026, we will be in a whole new phase. You'll see the golden age. You'll see the, like, you know, all the fruits of the golden age starting. Well, Memorial Day this year is May 26th. May 26, 1783 is when our founders celebrated the end of the Revolutionary War. President Trump, Elon, and all these others have told you we're in a revolution right now. So do your math. Add up all the language, the verbiage. Boom. It's there. All right, let's see what I want to talk about next. Oh, let's see. So like people saying they can't see anything, like yesterday 800 were arrested by ICE in the state of Florida. So, you know, when you say you don't see anything, well, again, what did President Trump say he was going to do? Starting January the 20th, 2025, the largest deportation known to man. Now, the liberals don't like it, but guess what the liberals are now supporting? Liberals are now supporting MS-13 gang members. Liberals are now wanting to, when they say they want due process of the law, no, Kilmar, he had due process in 2019. It's already in justice.gov documents. So see, they don't want to go by the law. They say they do, but it's only because when they want the law to work for them. That's not how the law works. It's just not how the law works. All right. So, let's see what else we have here. So just these are two are fun, but there were 2 Chinese balloons, all right, in Kansas and Florida just a couple of days ago. They're about 65,000 feet altitude. All right, I have multiple balloons on file that I have posted for all my pages. I have multiple quote-unquote Chinese balloons that I've posted since February 2023. That's how long ago that's been that the Chinese balloon dominated all the normies, as we call them. So how come the media is the one that made them rush out to the streets and the fields and the beaches to look up and see if they could see this thing coming over? So how come they're not doing it now? How come when I post these balloons, no one's saying anything about them? Funny, right? The irony. Well, the irony is I also had the February 2023 balloon on file, time-stamped, etc. And guess what it had? United States registration. All of these balloons, like these two this past week, United States registrations. It has the same identification. It looks identical. That is how, trying to be nice today. That's how lazy most Americans are. They will believe a balloon just because of the media tells it. But then a guy like me says, well, here's 40 more, and here's the original one that the media told you. They have the same registration. And there's two currently on the flight out right now. So why aren't people going crazy over it? Because they weren't told to go crazy. Alright, let's see what else this week. I'm going to do them in an order where I can do them in cool breakdowns. Alright, so Canada. So President Trump just posted yesterday, I think it was, or day before. I'm getting my time mixed up because I'm traveling. But President Trump put up on True Social a post where he talked about how he's ending wars in Africa. Well, Africa, obviously, we know is a continent, right? And all the countries in Africa. Well, it just so happened there was a Canadian military aircraft in South Sudan. In South Sudan, just, 3 or 4 days ago. And it was right before President Trump posted about ending wars in Africa that's been going on for a while. All right. Well, guess who posted the aircraft? I did. Before President Trump posted about Africa and wars in Africa, I put up, hey, here's Canada and South Sudan, and I put up what? I put up Executive Order 13664. Obama signed this executive order in April. The irony of this, in April 2014. So the very next day after I post this Canadian military aircraft in South Sudan, and here's Executive Order 13664 with a national emergency declared by Obama in 2014 for South Sudan, President Trump comes on the very next day and posts that I'm ending wars in Africa. And that's not the only place that we've been active in the continent of Africa the last 2 and 3 years. I have multiple aircraft in and out of different countries in Africa. All right, and then we have the Abraham Accords, which involve a lot of North African countries. I mean, they put this stuff right in front of everybody, but then again, if you're not knowing what you're supposed to know, that Merle Haggard song, Rainbow Stew, if people start doing what they ought to be doing, then they won't be booing no more. Well, if people start doing what they ought to be doing, that means to read the laws. How can you love President Trump if you don't want to know what he's working with? Now, I know people can. Yep, people can love President Trump and never know a single law. But why wouldn't you want to? If you're smart, if you're capable, if you have the time, if you have the patience, and you can read and you can comprehend, why wouldn't you want to know? But see, my thing is where I don't get mellow or where I lose my whatever is because when I see comments, so if you're willing to make a comment and say, oh, this is hogwash, this is BS, when it's all straight up laws and orders by President Trump, but it's more specifically military laws and orders, when you go on record saying it's hogwash, BS, or conspiracy theory, but you claim to be a patriot, you claim to be a Republican, you claim to be a conservative, no, you're not. You're a flapping gum is what you are. You're all smoke. That's it. Because why wouldn't you want to know that President Trump has done everything lawfully by the book, every single intricate detail, and everything I show people only empowers them. So if you're still in the boat of I'm not seeing anything, it's because you're not reading and you're not comprehending what you're looking for and looking at, because it is there all day long if you want some. And all over my page from this day, April 27th, back, it's there. So no one has any excuses not to be able to see something, because my page, all of my accounts are documentation of everything that's taken place when I was put into this vision for everybody. Meaning when I came into your life at August 24, 2022, from that day forward, everything that I've put out, no one has any excuses. If you didn't see it live time, you can see it posted with a timestamp on there. Yes, things are happening. And they're great things. Liberals look atrocious right now. Liberals, the ones that even have a brain, they're the lowest imbecile on the planet right now. And all they're doing is crapping on every memorial grave in this nation. All they're doing is crapping on the military. And most of them don't even like the military or support the military. Here they are. They say the terms, they say Constitution. They'll say the terms like law and order. But they don't know anything about it. They're in a nation that was founded in a war used with guns and weapons. And they claim that they're about the Constitution. And they claim they're about the... How? You're in a nation established during a war, fought for by a war, established by a war, created in a war with guns. Man, they're atrocious. The good thing is they're only like 10%, if that. They bark a lot louder. But what we need to do is put a muzzle on that bark. That's why we still need everybody to wake up and go, you're not going to say that anymore. You're not going to get out there and look like that anymore. We're going to kick you out of here. President Trump he literally just posted this before I went live. He said, these people are interrupting the town halls of Republicans, and Republicans, patriots need to stand up and kick these people out. He's telling you you're protected. He's telling you you can do that. He's telling you you're going to be okay if you usher someone out. You're going to be all right if you tell a liberal to shut their trap and get their you-know-what out. And if you have to force them out, he's telling you you're okay to escort them out that door and do what you used to see on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where old dude threw him out. Remember, he'd open the door and they'd show the door, and then next thing you see was him flying out. That's what you can do to a libtard, because we have everything in place that ain't hurting anybody. It ain't doing it. It ain't physically hurting anybody. It ain't emotionally hurting anybody. If someone's getting emotionally hurt because the laws are being upheld for the first time in many, many, many years, then they got the problem. Not me and you. Not us. All right, so the judges. Right now, all you hear is judge this, judge that, judge this, judge that, judge. Enjoy it, baby. It's a clean out. The laws and the orders, current and invoked, already outline what's going on and what's taking place. Again, 2017 to 2021, Article 1, resetting of the Constitution. Resetting what the Declaration of Independence talks about, the resetting of the foundation. Article 1. Article 2, 2021, 2025. Now you're watching the judge reset, because one reason, I talk about it all the time, it's very important to listen. Marbury versus Madison, 1803, was a landslide case and a landmark case for a reason. The father of the Constitution, James Madison, the guy who wrote majority of the Constitution, is going into a Supreme Court 16 years after he wrote the Constitution to tell a Supreme Court what a law is. No wonder we look the way we look now. No wonder people look atrocious. When the founding father, the father of the Constitution, is having to walk into the United States Supreme Court and testify and explain what they wrote and what they established. Hey, by the way, Chief Justice Marshall, I don't want to brag, but I did write the Constitution, and we set up this little thing called the checks and balances, and then we have the legislative branch first because we write the laws, and then you have the executive branch second because they enforce the laws, and then we see those are voted on by the people, right? And then the president, he appoints you the judge. All right, and your sole job is to interpret the law. If the law has a little discrepancy, or someone says, "Hey, someone's over here saying I think it says this," and Susie's over here saying I think it says this, then you are the one that says, it actually means this. All right, you interpret that. All right, what took place since 1870s moving forward? Judicial branch got way bigger. Judicial branch flipped on everything. The lawyers, the judges started writing the laws as well. They started influencing the writing of the laws over us, the people. Not what we wanted from we, the people, what they wanted. So here's Chief Justice Marshall back then, sitting there, and the father of the Constitution walks into the Supreme Court and says, pardon me, but I don't want to brag here, but I'm actually the author of the Constitution, the main author, and this is how law works. A law repugnant to the Constitution is void. So that justice knew if he didn't rule a certain way, which was that, a law repugnant to the Constitution is void, that was the ruling, but if he knew if he didn't rule that, the founding fathers would have fired him, fired all the judges, abolished the courts, and started all over. So President Trump could literally, in a real setting, even this is an operation, remember, but in a real setting, a president could walk in and say, pack your bags, go home, to every judge in this nation, because they're appointed. He could do that by law, because if they're not doing the will of the people, the legislative branch and the executive are voted on by us. They are to do the will of the people. The judicial branch are appointed and confirmed by the Senate. They're not elected by us. So if they're not doing what is done right here by the writing of the law and then the enforcement of the law, if they're not upholding that, and we voted on that, they need to be out. It's really that simple. So I went and looked up the Fourth Circuit. The Fourth Circuit's the one that's been giving President Trump trouble this go-around. Now, it's all a special operation. It's all visually. It's to show you, to get you involved, to reteach some of you, to re-educate some of you, and to educate some of you, whichever one you are. All right, to educate you, to get you engaged, to get you involved, to get you back thinking like this again and go, if you're still getting mad, great, but you're still not awake. So there's that. Because if you're awake, you'll be sitting back chill knowing this is all part of the plan. It's to reset the judicial branch. Just chill out. All right, if you're awake. No reason to get mad. No reason, I can't believe that judge. No, it's all part of it. Because you have enough stuff to fall back on. We're going to get to the fallback stuff in a minute. You have your fallback stuff to know this absolutely is a strategic operation. But the Fourth Circuit, all right, 3 of the 19 judges of the Fourth Circuit, only 3 were appointed by President Trump. 3 out of 19. So when a liberal who is operating in their minds, they're operating in a real time because they don't know anything about laws and orders. They don't know anything about military operations, military government, military operation. They don't know anything about that. So they're operating in a real time. But all you got to do is, if you know one, I don't know any liberals because I can't, I don't know any. But if you know one, all you have to do to them is just straight up outline that. Say, hey, you're bragging, but how can President Trump win when 16 of the 19 judges were all appointed by Obama, Bush, one of them was Herbert Walker Bush, the others were Clinton, and one of them was a Reagan. So that guy's like 85 years old. All right, but it shows the what? It shows their loyalty to the deep state. So that's to wake other people up, not you if you call yourself a patriot. Again, my job is to show you, hey, if you're a patriot, you're supposed to be fully on board with President Trump and the laws and the orders, the military operation, the military government, the continental government, because all of President Trump's laws and orders reflect that. They most certainly reflect that you're watching a strategic operation, strategic plan, strategic operation, special operation. All right, so that's what you're watching with the judges. You're watching Article 3 of the United States Constitution being reset to the original. Because when you go through this live, making it look lifetime, when you're getting people involved and educating people and re-educating, when we get on the flip side of everything will be running smooth. And then if there is, hopefully there's not, but if there's ever a discrepancy somewhere along the way down the road, everybody will know what to do with it. It won't be, oh, what do we do? And oh, no. It won't be that. So, there is some good with people getting mad, I guess. But if the people getting mad are still your friends and family, then you say, look, you're where you need to be right now, but I know a guy who can show you that what you're watching is this. All right, then you go win them over that way. It's all in laws and orders. All right, so President Trump just also posted about 11 years ago. He said 11 years ago, why didn't Zelensky, he was talking about, but Zelensky wasn't quote unquote president 11 years ago. So this is really, really careful. You got to listen here. So he truthed about 11 years ago. I put it up because it's validation. If you're awake, it's validation. If you've been following me, it's validation. 11 years ago, 2014. Well, Executive Order 13664, South Sudan was also in 2014. But in 2014, all right, so Obama, I don't like to call him president, but whatever you want to do, but Obama signed 4 executive orders in the year of 2014 alone for Ukraine. 4. 3 of those were in the month of March alone. One of those declared a national emergency, though. But think about that. What was so urgent that made Obama sign 3 executive orders in the month of March alone for Ukraine? All right. The other one was later that year. So 4 executive orders in 1 year. That means you got to know a little something about 2014. What have I been breaking down for 2.5, almost 3 years now? I've shown the breakdown of Ukraine and what took place. So in 2004, The Guardian has an article archived, but it talks about Department of Defense was funding biolabs in Ukraine. Our Department of Defense, that was compromised way back when, not the one now, but then, they were funding biochemical labs in Ukraine. The same thing that Mitt Romney said Tulsi Gabbard was a conspiracy theorist over, because Tulsi Gabbard called out, said that they need to shut down all these bio labs, and Mitt Romney said that was a conspiracy theory. That was dangerous, that she was spewing conspiracy theories. This was way back in 2022. All right. This is all operational, though. All optics and comms, audio, visuals and audio. All right, so you got to do the math, and I'm going to go back through the breakthrough again of Ukraine for you. So in 2014 alone, you had 4 executive orders declaring a national emergency. What was so unusual that presented a threat with the United States and Ukraine? 2014. In 2014, Joe Biden, as vice president, made 7 trips in 7 months on your dime. Your taxpayer dollars. He went to Ukraine 7 times in 7 months. Also in 2014, Victoria Nuland. Victoria Nuland was working for the Biden administration. All right, she was just working. Wasn't some special, but she secured $1 billion, not million, $1 billion in defense budget for Ukraine alone. That's the same $1 billion that is now under congressional oath. Joe Biden testified. It's all documented. It's all time-stamped. He said that if a prosecutor was not fired, blah, 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 blah. You go read the whole transcript. But then someone said, what happened? He said, well, they fired the SOB. The same year, Victoria Nuland was also caught on audio, verified by multiple sources, the people who listen in on that. All right. Wasn't just some random audio. Wasn't some made-up stuff like they've tried to do to other people. This is verified. She was caught on audio saying F-U-C-K, F-U, F-U to the EU, so the European Union. That ain't who they would want to be cussing. Alright, so all that happened in 2014 alone. Also in 2014, they only had one round of 2 traditional rounds for voting for the president in Ukraine. 3 days later is when the phone call took place, Obama congratulating Poroshenko. Not Zelensky. But President Trump's truth said, why didn't they fight so hard back then not to give up their land to Russia? Why weren't they fighting then? But see, the war started February 27, 2014. That's when Crimea and all those places, that's when the real war started. You can go, it's already documented, read this on the internet, 2014. But look at all the other things that took place in 2014, and now look at President Trump. Why didn't they fight back then like they're trying to fight now? Now, I know it's all a strategic plan and strategic operation. A lot of you do too. But for the people who don't, the laws and the orders outline this, because here's what took place. Fast forward. 2018, July 2018, President Trump met with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, Finland. That meeting was put together by the general that I was just on a podcast with, Major General Paul Vallely. He put that meeting together. It's all validated. He already validated also special operations. It's a special operation, but also special forces, special operations all over the board right now still. All right. So you take 2018, the soccer ball that was handed to President Trump. The ball's in your court, sir. What do you want us to do? I'm not starting a foreign war, but you're going into Ukraine and you're going to take out those biochemical labs. All right. That's why they've been showing article after article, and they contradict each other, ladies and gentlemen. All throughout 2022, 2023, and 2024. One article one day would say that Ukraine's taking out 500,000 Russian soldiers. The next day, it's telling you, the people, that, oh, Ukraine can't handle it. Ukraine's running out of ammo. Ukraine can't sustain. Which one is it? 500,000 soldiers is a lot of soldiers. Have you noticed that President Trump has used the term 500,000 the whole time? All right, now, I know it's an operation. That's not him flubbing anything for the idiots out there that would hear that but don't know the full blueprint. But the number was 500,000 in 2022. The number was 500,000 in 2023. The number hadn't changed. So, but how is it that Ukraine can take out 500,000 soldiers, but then the next article says they can't win this war? They can't. If they're taking out 500,000 soldiers, and saying, they were annihilating, and Russia tried this and Ukraine got them here. There were so many articles that I've highlighted. How is that possible? So see, that shows Americans, look, I mean, I'm not dumb, but look how many dumb Americans there are that would read it one day and go, oh man, they're sticking it to them, and the next day, they can't do anything, they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't. Why can't they? If they're taking out 500,000 soldiers, they're doing pretty dang good. Then they never showed you what? A uniform military. Every photo they ever showed was not uniform military. Russia has a uniform military. Ukraine has a uniform military. Why are they showing you soldiers in all different colors of material, all different colors of gear. The gear wasn't even legit real. All the photos they showed of the tanks were always blurry. It looked like an Atari game that you had in the early 80s. It don't, come on people, it's the same thing that South Dakotans swear there's a Sasquatch. In every photo they show you, it's always blurry. Come on, South Dakota, we're not dumb. Show some, look at technology. Everything they showed on Ukraine was always blurry. It was always just pixelated. Why? How? And then 55 million smartphones in Ukraine. How come someone wasn't a rebel going, I'm going to video this. I ain't supposed to, but how come? We didn't see one single rebel outlaw going, I'm not supposed to video this, but the average American needs some good dose of Southern on them. God love them. God love them. The average American. Now I know people work. I know people have. If I can know what I know, you can too. You don't just have to be secret military and all these other. You don't to know the basic formula, the basic principles. All right. So 2018, that meeting took place. Balls in your court, sir. I'm not starting a foreign war. You're going in there and you're going to take out those biolabs. Done. All right. Then in 2018, Ukraine broke a Commonwealth treaty that they had signed with Russia years ago. They broke that treaty. All right. Also in 2018, we broke a treaty with Russia. The Intermediate Nuclear Forces Range Treaty. And it actually leads to a thing called MAD, the MAD Doctrine. M-A-D, MAD, Mutually Assured Destruction. Go Google and read about Mutually Assured Destruction. The simple layman's terms while we're here is actually nuclear peace, not nuclear war. That's what took place all in 2018. Fast forward, March the 8th, 2022. All throughout 2021, the quote-unquote Biden administration, the puppet, the government in exile, the fake, the faux government, all right, that all throughout 2021, there's no biolabs in Ukraine, no biolabs in Ukraine, no biolabs in Ukraine, no biolabs. That's a conspiracy theory. That's false. That's dangerous. That's it. March the 8th, 2022. Marco Rubio was questioning Victoria Nuland under congressional oath. Are there biolabs in Ukraine? Yes, but we were afraid the Russians were going to get them. So she just said yes, there are biolabs in Ukraine. If they're not biolabs for chemical weapons and weapon use, why were they afraid the Russians were going to get a hold of them? Why did they care about Russia? If Russia wasn't trying to get in, Russia didn't invade Ukraine just to invade Ukraine. That ain't what happened. If Russia invaded Ukraine, it wouldn't be Ukraine at the table trying to make a peace deal. It'd be Russia. See, it's little simple things like that, which is also makes me disappointed in veterans out there, certain veterans that have been trying to be defensive about all this. If you don't know the basic core of war, if Russia invaded Ukraine, it would be Ukraine at the table. They'd be the victim. So why is Ukraine the one for ceasefire and peace deal? They wouldn't be. You'd be trying to make a deal with the one who invaded. Hey, what are you doing? Why did you invade? What are you trying to do? What are you doing here? And also, if you notice back then, in 2023, they made Biden quote Article 5 of the NATO Constitution. Ukraine's not a part of NATO. Even in the debate, he said Russia may go into Belarus and other surrounding NATO countries. Belarus is not part of NATO. I mean, if you just know simple things like that, you'll know that you're watching something that's not right. Even if you don't know exactly what it is, put your finger on it. You'll be like, all you got to do is go look up NATO and go, Article 5 of NATO says an attack on one is an attack on all. And they will respond to it. So how come all the other NATO countries weren't annihilating Russia? All they had to do was gang up on Russia. Why didn't they gang up on Russia? If that's a real war, why didn't they do it? Where are the uniformed soldiers? They're not uniformed soldiers. Again, every photo. So 2018 to 2022. 2022, that was March the 8th. The very next week is when Mitt Romney was saying. So here's Mitt Romney, a Republican. Here's Victoria Nuland, a Democrat. The Democrat is under congressional oath on March the 8th, 2022, saying, yes, there are biolabs after the Hall 2021. No, they're not, by her people. Here she is admitting it. The next week, you have Rhino Mitt, a rhino, saying that that's a conspiracy theory. That's how sleepy Americans are, but especially Republicans and conservatives. What part of the congressional oath did they not hear? So why were Republicans getting mad at Mitt Romney? Get mad because you didn't hear what was taking place. So you got to get mad the right way. But don't get mad. Well, I'm saying, if you're going to get mad, you don't need to get mad. It's a strategic operation. They're showing you who the rhinos are. They're showing you who the allegiance to the alliance are. Not good Americans, not people saying, hey, this ain't Republican-Democrat war. This is a good versus evil. So in 2022, the reason why they put a new date on a war starting is because President Trump's going to get all the credit for ending this thing. It was started way back here, as he alluded to just a couple days ago in his post. 11 years ago, why weren't they trying hard as hell to not have a war? Why didn't they stop Russia back then? Why are they fighting like hell now? They're not fighting like hell. That's all optics. They put a new date in place because President Trump's going to get credit for it, not all these other people. You would have people trying to take credit. I was part of that. No, you weren't. They put a new start date, February 22nd, 2022. But what's funny was just 2 weeks later, old Victoria Nuland, who secured the $1 billion in 2014, was under oath and she testified there are biolabs in Ukraine, which, again, they call it conspiracy theory, and all the others, and even real people call it conspiracy theory. It wasn't a conspiracy. Now, watch the soccer ball. Remember the soccer ball? 2018. Ball's in your court, President Trump. 2018. Now, if you're a football fan, like American football, like University of Alabama, right? They win a lot of national championships in football. Georgia's won a few recently. Ohio State's won a lot. All right. If you were to take Ohio State football away from the state of Ohio for a year or two and say, hey, look, if you really love America, your boys have got to not play football this year, but they're going to go do this. If you went and told Alabama, you told Georgia, you went and told whomever, Notre Dame, Southern Cal, whoever, your boys, they can't play football this year. America comes first, and if they love America, this is what's going on right now. Let's say there was a scenario where there's, and then they got to go join the military or serve in the military. In 2022, who did not play in the FIFA World Cup of soccer? What country didn't play in it? The ball's in your court, sir. Now see how beautiful that soccer ball looks? Now watch this. Just this past week as well, Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is a country, obviously, in Central Asia. All right, Turkmenistan was in Russia. Military aircraft was flying around Russia. It landed in Moscow, and the next day went back to Turkmenistan. All right. Most people have never even heard of Turkmenistan. Most people can't even put their own state on the map, a blank canvas of the United States. If you just took a shell and say, here's your state, put it in its slot. Most people can't do that. 50% of people cannot put their own state on a blank canvas. Turkmenistan was flying just a couple of days ago in Russia, then landed in Moscow, then went back to Turkmenistan the next day. In 2023, guess who was flying all over the United States of America? at airports that are not military bases, that are not National Guard attachments, that are not reserve bases. Turkmenistan. So this is where you got to get back to the 8 executive orders with 8 national mercies and know what an executive order is and what a national mercy is. Then this is where you get into my 2 options. You have 2 options. Either Joe Biden is the greatest president of all time with President Trump in the special operation, because there's not a thing that Joe did militarily. There's not, by law. All the things that they showed, certain things that Joe did, was a continuation. It was nothing that was out of his, for the people that thought he was real. Nothing. Everything was President Trump's. All the military laws and orders were President Trump's. All the commands were President Trump's. And then President Trump never left for the people who were, wait, we know that. You know that. Via me. All right? You know that. But if people who don't know that, who don't know what a wartime president is, don't know what a presidential emergency action document is, don't know what a continuity of government is, they don't know that. But laws and orders don't lie. They're time-stamped for one, and they're neutral in another, but they also, there's 4 ways that military pairs with federal. Only 4. Executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. That's it. It's that simple. Executive orders. Hear what it just said? So, how is it that quote-unquote Joe never had anything on his own that contributed to that? So it's either Joe is the greatest president of all time with President Trump in the strategic special operation, one option, or 2, either President Trump is right about Joe. Because it makes no sense why Joe Biden would continue all these executive orders, and then also during 2023, 2024, President Trump's a threat to democracy. President Trump has violated the Constitution. He violated this. He's a threat. He's a this. He's a that. He's a this. He's a that. All the lawfare. All the trying to frame him. Trying to set him up. But they never used the Logan Act on him. They never used the 14th Amendment on him. They never used anything else they could. So you got 1 or 2 options. If he was a threat, they had options to get rid of him if this was real time. They had the 14th Amendment, they had the Logan Act, they had the 25th Amendment. There was a bunch of things they could have used on President Trump lawfully. He met with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times from April to December 2024. That's a clear visual of meeting foreign leaders in a private establishment, Trump Tower in Mar-a-Lago. Why didn't they use the Logan Act on him? He was in Texas with the governor of Texas and the adjutant general at the border. If Joe was a sitting president, that would have been a breach of national security and also would have been a violation of his own executive order 13848 with the national emergency, which is election interference because it was an election year. So why would Joe and the Democrats, with Democratic control from 2021 to 2023 of the House and the Senate, meaning they could have done anything, they didn't do a thing. So that's why Americans look atrocious if you say, well, the economy went this, and the gas went this, and the this went that. That's not legislation. That's not legislation. That's not military. That's not military laws and orders. That's not military operations. So see, if you love this nation and you love America, then you got to know there's been trafficking. There's been all forms of trafficking, child trafficking, which is the most atrocious of all, human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking. All right? Drug trafficking, ironically, funds a lot of those. Not always, but it does sometimes. Coast Guard, the Navy have been very, 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 very active, busting massive cocaine busts, massive drug busts. All right? Not just here and there like Obama did. They did, yeah, visually. But it wasn't a lot. It was just here and there to keep things going, to make people think they were doing certain things. All right? So you have your trafficking, you have all your illicit drugs, your fentanyl, your opioids crisis, all those things, which that stems into drug trafficking somewhat, but there's other forms of illicit drugs usage that they were also combating, opioids crisis, and then also with on the streets with our homeless veterans and all the veterans, homeless out there that they get strung out and different things. There's another kind of crisis as well, President Trump. So if you love this nation, you would seek to know what operations that the military has been running. Because you made it through all that. And we're not, let me tell you what, we just had the NFL draft. Did you see all the kids in their big gold diamonds? Did you see all that? Do you watch this stuff? Do you see any of that? Look at the NBA draft, the NHL draft, look at the PGA Tour. We're not poor in this nation. I don't want to hear some BS from any American talking about, oh, we the economists. You went through the economy fine. And when the real recession took place in 2008, a lot of you who whine, complain, and gripe, you were drinking your beer, smoking your cigarettes. You have a way to slice certain things and make room for what you want to make room for. So don't talk about America being a poor nation and we were struggling and we were hurting and we were this. We ain't hurting nowhere. The three things you need to live are food, water, and shelter. The rest of it is all a bonus. We're not hurting in this nation. Not hurting. You're not hurting. And if you complain and you live in a house and you have a vehicle and you can get to work and you have food when you want it and when you need it and want and need, you ain't hurting, and you made it through that economy that you claim with, oh, why would he crash it? You need food, water, shelter. Everything else is a bonus. And if you're not seeking to understand that we've been in operations with child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, the illicit drugs, the opioids, and all the illegal migrants, which is temporary, not an immigrant, all right, not seeking asylum, not refugees being castrated out of their, out of their country. Oh, we're going to get you. We're going to, no, they're not trying to like kill them or chop their head off or anything. No, they come in here, all right, through an open border for many years, not under President Trump. Every time he says something like that, he's saying, if I would have been president, he's saying way back whenever, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But we're not a poor nation. We're not. So, there's only two options. Because why would they hand that back over to President Trump? Here you go, President Trump. Here's your 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies. Still open. We didn't touch them. Didn't do a thing. Oh, yeah, by the way, we never revoked all of your federalization orders, the National Guard and the reserve components, 1 million. They're still federalized. Here you go. Here they are. Why would they do that? That's that. Woosah. That's how dumb Americans are. I'm still going to say it. That's how dumb Americans are. If you want to be vocal, you want to say, oh, this is hogwash. If you want to do that, that's how dumb you are. Why would Joe and Obama, if Obama was pulling the strings behind the scenes, look at all the patriots who said, oh, Obama's back there pulling the strings. Look at the patriots now. When President Trump's talking about the auto pen, whoever was running the auto pen ought to be this. They're trying to get your attention. They're bringing you. Now he's talking about it. He's bringing a focal point to it. Focal point. The laws and the orders outline special operations. The laws and the orders outline military government. The laws and the orders outline military operations. The laws and the orders outline continuity of government. The laws and the orders outline continuity of operations. And then you have visuals of all that. The 45-47. That's your simple vision. You think President Trump messed up with the dash? That's what you would have to argue first. Before you combat me, you'd have to argue that President Trump made an error by putting a dash on his ball cap April the 2nd, 2023. Liberation Day, April the 2nd, 2025. Liberation Day, anniversary, 2023 is when he put that on there. So he's saying, hey, I'm your 46th president in 2023. Because he put a dash there, means continuous, means through. And he's saying, hey, I'm going to be your 47th president in 1 year and 7 months. So almost 2 years. He's sitting there telling you, I'm going to be your 47th president. I'm putting it on my ball cap right now. So you have to argue with him first before you argue with me. And people would, because people love to argue. I think some people love looking dumb. So you have two options. Now, this is what's cool. And it's going to be short. I'm actually under time here. This is awesome. So if you notice this past week, on TrumpStore.com, President Trump's official store, the official store, and then Eric Trump on his official Instagram and pages put a photo up of wearing a ball cap. That ball cap says Trump 2028. Now liberals, I don't know. I've been traveling, so I ain't got to really look a whole lot if they're losing their minds yet. But Trump 2028. Now, a lot of you have been following me. You'll know what I'm talking about. Those of you who are new, you'll catch up. If you hang around, you'll catch up. But there was a dummy, a real dumb, all right, who was in the military a couple years ago who tried to steal my federal trademark. And I'm never going to let it go because I just think it's humorous, because the idiot now really looks atrocious. Now he really looks dumb because of what we're about to talk about. All right, your fallbacks, what we call your fallbacks. But this idiot went around the internet, was trying to trail me because he, let's just be honest, he's jealous. He probably wants to marry me. He's probably actually gay. I don't know. And sorry for all my gay friends out there. I mean, you do your thing. That's fine. It's not my style. It ain't how I roll. But let's just be honest. He's probably he's just jealous and probably wants to jump my bones. And I don't float that way. So it's like, okay, sorry, bro. But super jealous. All right. And he would trail me all over the internet. And it would be people posting stuff everywhere about me and the executive orders. And so he would post his stuff over here, all right? And then so someone was writing about executive order with a national emergency. And he went on there and he was saying, oh, this is not how executive orders were. Every president extends executive orders. Okay, so how you feel about them 8 executive orders now with them 8 national emergencies? Because he's a libtard. He's super liberal. All right, so how do you feel now? See how dumb see, this is why I tell people, don't make a comment unless you absolutely know what you're talking about. Because when you are especially in a limelight or a spotlight or any kind of light, people who are reading and studying, they're going to go, that's not true. That's definitely not true. So how you feel about them 8 executive orders now? Is that what presidents just do? Because those 8 executive orders with those 8 national emergencies alone, those 8 alone are the ones that are deporting the illegal migrants, the Doge, all right, your trafficking, all forms of trafficking, everything, the Panama Canal, executive order with Hong Kong, July 14, 2020, executive order 13936. President Trump told everybody it's Hong Kong who's controlling the Panama Canal. The liberals are losing their minds right now over the Panama Canal and Doge and all this. So now see how dumb this person looks? So what did stealing a trademark have to do with laws and orders? The reason why I brought that up, very important not to give this idiot credit on anything, because there's no credit to be given, but meaning like negative publicity. But the dummy is the same dummy who was trying to tell people that the president cannot expand his power as president. Dwight D. Eisenhower established the Presidential Emergency Action Documents. They're draft classified. You're not going to Google them. You're not going to see what's in them. They're draft classified for a reason. They are a series of executive orders, proclamations, treaties, and national emergencies that were pre-planned, presented to the president to sign really fast. So see, it wasn't President Trump who came up with these executive orders. national emergencies, proclamation, and treaties. Now he can write the treaty, but that's normally people around him, lawyers, military lawyers, etc., federal lawyers that he trusts, his people, right? They put that together. So that's what a presidential emergency action document is. It's a draft classified. You're not going to Google what's in it because only they know what's in it. But it means there was an emergency so dire that they can't tell the people, but we're in action. But what accompanies a PED is a continuity of government. You can't have one without the other because it's saying, okay, we're going to do this and this is going to take place. But see, the liberals were yelling at President Trump way back. The liberals have been ahead of everybody. They're just on the flip side, the polar opposite. All right, they've been ahead of Republicans. In 2020, that's when the mainstream media started saying that, oh, President Trump's going to install a general just in case law breaks down. You don't install generals. That's not the terminology, ladies and gentlemen. It's not the terminology. You don't install generals. All right. So then they were saying that the President Trump's going to terminate the Constitution. You saw liberals all over X and Twitter, etc., saying we're going to terminate the Constitution. President don't do that. That's not Article 2 of the executive branch of the Constitution. Guess what article that is? Article 1. Legislative branch does that. Congress does that. All right. So, presidential emergency action documents is your military government because when a continuity government comes into place, that means that the Constitution is suspended, right? That's what they've showed you. And they told you this. And in Executive Order 13961 was the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy. That's your invocation of the executive branch continuity of government. January the 1st. Remember what I talked about earlier? January the 1st, 2021. So Executive Order 13961 was December the 7th, 2020. So just a little over 3 weeks later, this publication under the Federal Continuity Directives came out. Reconstitution of the executive branch. During January 2021, remember all the chaos? Remember that? So what are the odds of that? Are you going to tell me that just coincidentally happened? See, to someone who's hearing this for the first time would say that. But those of you who've been following me, you have the books, #1 bestsellers that have been in print since December 2023, one of them. The other one, January this year. But everything in print, I already had in documents as well. Remember my documents talking about COVID being retaliation? And what did they tell you where it came from just in Fox News a few weeks ago? A week ago. They were just now covering all of what's taking place 5 years later now. I have it all in documents. I have it all in the books. So everything's already validated because it's timestamped. I've got everything in the books before it came out, right? But I already knew that way back here because I had this documented in the documents, all right? So the presidential emergency action documents themselves and the continuity of government, all right? That's why there's a blueprint in place. There was a line drawn in the sand November the 8th, 2016. Now, the plan was in place long before that, but that was your visual. The only way President Trump got in was military and military law, and then also lawfully through the military. Because they've been cheating on elections for years. This had nothing to do with 2020. They've been cheating on elections for years from the state level, well, local, state, and federal. All right. The only way President Trump, as an outsider, beat Hillary Clinton was via military. All right, and they told everybody in 2022, 2020, 2022, and 2024 that the military was at precincts all around the nation, the National Guard. It's because we track and use analog systems, not digital. So it can't be hacked and all kinds of other things. When you get it on analog, it's there. We have it. That's why President Trump said we have it all. We've called them all. It had to look this way to catch them, to have timestamps. So this nitwit who followed me around, boy, you talking about looking atrocious. That's why I told veterans, if you want to be vocal, if you want to look that way, the more you have on your DD-214, The more badges you have, the more medals you have, the more ribbons you have, the more deployments you have, the more whatever you want it, the more, whatever's the more. The more you have, and you don't know what's invoked in current laws and orders, that's more than specifically, but strategically outline a strategic plan and special operation via those laws and orders, it's only going to look worse on you. All right, and especially if you're trying to tear me down because, oh, I didn't serve or do whatever I did as long as you did, or see what you saw, and it's only going to look worse on you, hoss. If you want that on you, but I tell you, I screenshot everything. It's all filed away. I have every single one of you, you veterans that came after me and said it's all hot. I have your names, I have your images, I have everything. And now you look really atrocious. And you better hope I don't show your face again and bring you back up to people and say, here you go right here, military industrial complex, got a DD-214, longer than a you know, I don't know what I can come up with there, you know, the wedding crasher party list, all right, whatever. And you were trying to take me down for what reason? I'm trying to empower people on knowing the laws and orders and letting them read it for themselves. Is that why? So this dude specifically has in writing, the same guy who tried to steal my trademark and all the other stuff he tried to do. Presidents can only serve 2 terms. Don't know anything about Presidential Emergency Action Documents. PEDs. Never mentioned anything about a PED. Atrocious. So what's awesome about it is that President Trump's already given you the 45-47. Dash means exactly what it means. It means through. 45 to 47. 45 through 47. 45 plus 46 plus 47. You can't split that hair any other way. That's exactly what that imagery means. So if you got a problem with me, people out there who are still watching my Rumble videos, etc., 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 if you got a problem with me, you got a problem with President Trump. If you're a liberal, well, we know why. But if you're a patriot, if you're a Republican, if you're a conservative, you got some issues. Because everything that I talk about are all laws and orders by President Trump. Invoked. I-N-V-O-K-E-D. All right, not, sometimes people hear that, it sounds like I'm saying vote. V-O-T-E. No, invoked. Meaning in action. Laws and orders. So when you go look at a presidential emergency action document and then a continental government, they accompany each other. And they were established by Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was a military governor, supreme commander. Rare 5-star general. We've only had 8 post the Civil War. 8 5-stars. That's why President Trump quotes him all the time. So, watch this. This is your fallback. A couple of them. So the Trump 2028 on President Trump's new cap now. Now you can go hog wild with it and say, well, it don't say Donald Trump, it don't say, but you can go hog wild and think it could be Eric or Don Jr. You can do whatever, or Laura or Ivanka or whatever. You can do whatever you want to do there, but stay focused on what we're talking about. He's already given you a visual, 45-47. He's already, and the laws already show that. At multiple speeches, he said, what are we? He'd look at his advisor and he'd say, are we going to be is this our second or third term? Which one is it? Then at the Black History Month in February, just this past February, he said, with Tiger Woods present, he said, what do you think? Should I run for a third and a fourth term? What do you think? Well, he's already in his third term by laws. But you got to know the laws to know that. Then you got to know special operations to understand it, to comprehend it. Fourth term. John Bolton, former National Security Advisor for President Trump, who President Trump removed his security clearance not long ago. gave him a nickname, and then removed his security clearance. Now, if you're watching CNN or MSNBC or whatever he's been on, it looks like he's against President Trump, and he says recently that President Trump is a disgrace to Ronald Reagan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's the demise of John Bolton. That's telling you that John Bolton was Republican conservative on the surface, right? Flapping gums, but deep down, he wasn't. All right, because when President Trump removes your security clearance and gives you a nickname, there's some serious stuff that you don't know back here, right? So there's the visuals and the audios there. Unless they're playing a very strategic operation still with him, and maybe he's going in on CNN and all these other places still playing a role to see what he can gather. So there's always a good option. That's why I tell people, look, if you'll get into the mind of special operations and think outside the box, it could be either or. Don't just absolutely say that's an absolute and write it off in your heart and your mind. Go ahead and think outside the box. It's okay. You're not in the operation. You're not in the command. You're not in why they put these presidential emergency action documents in place. All right. So before we get back to John really quick, it just reminded me, another key nugget, the key piece. Just about a month ago, President Trump said, I've signed over 400 executive actions since this January 20th. There were only 150 on the Federal Register at that point. Where were the other 250 executive actions? Presidential emergency action documents. They're draft classified. But he's going ahead and telling me. And to this day, there's not 400 executive actions posted. So, again, you got to listen to him. So let's go back to John Bolton now, because that confirms everything. Go back to John Bolton. Security clearance removed. Nickname. February last year, John Bolton was on CNN. And this is the one time I told all of you out there who follow me, I said, now is the one time that reading doesn't help you out. The one time. Because it's a visual and an audio. So he's on CNN. And the bottom line had about a second term. But then the host asked John, said, can President Trump run a second time with all these charges on him? So the lawfare. And John, you got to listen to him. I still have the video. You can still go to YouTube to this day. It's there. John says specifically, well, the Constitution right now specifically bars a president from running a third term. But knowing President Trump like I know, he will seek to ratify the Constitution to stay in power. Well, that goes back to my timeline again from 1941 to 2001. The deep state. 1941, your First and Second War Powers Act of 41 and 42. NATO was established in 49. We started going into other countries, 1950, Korea. That's when the first real foreign war after your world wars took place. All right, Korea, 1950 to 53. Vietnam started in 55. But then I skipped a year for a reason. Those of you know I did on purpose. All right. Then you go to 1961. January the 17th, 1961. Dwight D. Eisenhower's famous speech for the military-industrial complex. He didn't like where the military was going because of money. He also mentioned the medical field. Money. All right. JFK. All right, we know 61, 62, 63. All right. Then you had in 68, we left the Gold Standard Act. The Unified Budget Act was passed in 68. All right, Unified Budget consolidated, put a lot of things together. Social Security being one of those. Then you had the Nixon shock of 71, 72. All right, that's when Congress made the dollar as valuable as they wanted it and invaluable, meaning inflated or deflated. That's when they started playing with the dollar. All right. Then you had 1991, you had your Budget Act was passed again. All right, another form of a Budget Act. Also in 91, you had George H.W. Bush had his famous New World Order speech on September the 11th, 1991. September the 11th, 1991? And 10 years to the day, his son. Alright, so go back. 1951 was the year I skipped on purpose. In 1951, Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves. And see, this is where liberals look super atrocious. And you Republicans, you conservatives, you patriots don't want to look just as atrocious. That's why the dummy looks dumb, looks super dumb now. Especially for trying to do something that had nothing to do with laws and orders. I mean, atrocious. Alright? 1951. Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves. Nowhere in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1, does it say there are term limits on the president. In the United States Constitution, it don't even say that Congress is to set that. It says specifically in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution that there are 4 years in a term. That's it. Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was in his 4th term, 13th year when he died in office. Guess how many times he was voted in? 4 times. It was after him and the War Powers Act, his war. Because see, he's the one who told Congress, if you don't write something, if you don't pass something, we will act. We, Commander-in-Chief and the military. That's why they passed the 1941 War Powers Act and the 1942 War Powers Act. That became your 1973 War Powers Act. But that's where Congress messed up. Congress thought they were limiting the president by making it to where a president had to declare a national emergency to use the military in 1973 in the new War Powers Act of 1973, which is Chapter 33 of Title 50. When a president declares a national emergency, it opens up 150 statutory powers. So by theory, you could say Jimmy Carter to President Trump was a wartime president. If you want to go that route, you could do that. Because there's a national emergency open all the way back to 1979, Jimmy Carter. That was the tussle between the president and Congress. It became a tussle. And Congress thought they were putting term limits on the president was going to suppress the president, the executive power, even more. And in 1973, making it to where a president could not use the troops for anything except via declaring the national emergency in your War Powers Act. But guess what's in there? Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, President Trump, December the 20th, 2019. Here's your fallback. So John Bolton said that in February 2024. In the same February 2024, 14 states deployed to Texas. 14 states deployed to Texas. Where's the order? There has to be a military order there. So watch this. That's a fallback. Now we're going to use a recent fallback, something that just happened. So March the 11th, 2025. New York State Senate wrote a letter to President Trump. Wrote a letter to him, asking him to federalize the National Guard to active duty. Title 10 authority, that's presidential. The New York State Senate on March the 11th, 2025 wrote a letter. You can go look it up on a .gov site. I've already posted it. Got it there. .gov. Here's the official letter. Their signatures on the bottom, asking President Trump to federalize the National Guard to active duty. Now, I already had the reports up of 2023 Army reports of the National Guard of New York from 2022 and 2023. There were 2,800 soldiers who were on federal orders with the subways. You remember all the articles about the National Guard being in the subways in New York, and a lot of you New Yorkers know about this. You've seen them. That's civil operations. That's Joint Publication 3-57. Joint Operations. Joint Publication. That's page 46 where it says generally, no, the military doesn't work with civil. But unless the what? The Constitution or the Congress deemed so. Well, the Congress would still have to use the Constitution. So they do that there on purpose. Well, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 is a codification under the Constitution. And did you not just hear me? I already gave the punchline away. 2,800 New York National Guard were already on federal orders in 2022 and 2023. So when you fast forward to this New York State Senate.gov letter from just a little over a month ago, 2025, there's no Title 10 order after that by President Trump and his new executive orders. But guess what took place? The New York National Guard are now up to 8,200 National Guard from the 2,800 on active duty. So that tells you they had an increase from 2,800, 6,000 troops. Where's the Title 10 order at? Same Title 10 from Texas. 14 states deployed to Texas in February 2024. The only person seen at the border with the governor of Texas and the adjutant general of Texas was President Donald John Trump. The adjutant general is your golden nugget. The adjutant general reports to the state chief executive, the governor, Abbott, unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10. That is the definition of an adjutant general in the United States military. He's the commanding officer of all the state military. And President Donald John Trump was the only president seen at the border with the governor of Texas and the adjutant, which is a rank structure. You don't salute a former president. You don't at ease a former president. When President Trump walked in that FOB, forward operating base, where's the Title 10 order at? March 27th, 2020, President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components active duty. Reserves only serve a federal mission. Guess what that order is under? If you go to Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, Chapter 33 is the War Powers Act of 1973. President Trump declared 8 national emergencies and 8 executive orders that have been continued. He declared 11 total. All right. So, again, March 27, 2020, if you go read Section 1550 of Chapter 33, it says, in the first 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, comma, and every 180 days thereafter, the President is to report to the Defense Committees the use of what? Military, regular and irregular forces. Irregular pulls in your Title 50. That pulls in your clandestine, that pulls in your covert, that pulls in your guerrilla warfare, that pulls in your secret military and your underground militaries. Your special operations. That one little word. Unconventional warfare, the definition in Special Operations Command is to overthrow a government lawfully by the military. So, you go read again, New York State Senate wrote President Trump a letter this past March asking him to federalize. There's no federalization order on the books except for March 27, 2020. But when you go back and you look at your fallbacks, your fallback is February 2024, 14 states deployed to Texas. Where's that Title 10 order? There's no Title 10 order immediately before that or near it. The only Title 10 order for all of your National Guard and Reserve component movements are from March 27, 2020, the 1 million reserve components. Sleepy Joe, I know he was fake and not real, but for the people who thought he was real, he had one Title 10 order there. It was a continuation. It was 3,000 troops. 3,000 out of that 1 million. It was not a new Title 10 order. It all had to do with your chronological blueprint, because it's a continuation, a continuity of government. None of this stopped. So go time was January the 20th, 2017. That was your visual of go time. You have your federal continuity directives, which are your continuity government outlines, and there's 10 publications under those. Then there's also your military. That's your Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. Then you got to go look at the National Guard movement, the reserve components. All unique and separate and different than any other time period in history. And then President Trump validates it when he says, I've signed 400 executive actions this year since January the 20th. Where are they? They're not on the Federal Register. There's only 150 there. At the time he said that. There's more there now, but at the time he said it, I've signed 400. Those are your presidential emergency action documents, your PEDs, your continuity government. The whole thing's in operation. Now, where we are now is a lot better than where we were way back. All right. The first 4 years, a lot different. It's still a special operation. The whole thing is a blueprint. The whole thing's an operation. So, you have all the validity you need. But every day something comes out and he validates it. He validates. He validates. He validates. It's all there. Right? And my books are living proof of that. But if you can't afford a book, hey, I got everything on Facebook, Telegram, etc. I have the same content there. Have the same content in the documents. Now, some of those websites that I put on there way back, like CNN, like the proof clicks, as I call it, some of them have expired because these people deleted it. President Trump acknowledged that hey, they tried to delete everything. He talked about CNN and MSNBC deleting articles. All right. So let's talk about one more article. One more article. Here's your other validation. Speaking of articles, President Trump this past week, this week was a beautiful week with President Trump's thumbs. All right. But there was an article that came out this week, a mainstream article, all right, saying about the Insurrection Act. Will President Trump seek to invoke the Insurrection Act? And they try to put in there when the last time it was invoked in this article. Will he try to use another wartime order? It's already been used. And I hear people all the time saying, hey, will we go into martial law? Will this happen? Will this happen? We've already been there. Military government is martial law. Now, this is where some of you will hear your daddies or your grandpas or whoever, however old men are, but older men up in their 50s, 60s, 70s will say that the president's supposed to tell us when we're in martial law. Why would he tell you that the enemy's present? He's told you. He told you in a different way. He said our gravest threats are not abroad, it's within. He's told you for the last 9 years, President Trump said the enemy is right here. People don't listen. If you love President Trump, listen to him. If he says a word you never heard of before, look it up. Look it up. But you have no excuses now, where we are, that I have #1 best-selling books. Because these people watching me, and I don't mean it in a derogatory, these people are awesome. 1776 Nation, Rattletrap 1776, Derek Jonhson Country, all of my platforms, these people are awesome. They gave it a #1. Yeah, I put the content there, and God gave me the ability to put it all together intellectually, put it all in a chronological order, where it flows. But these people made it #1. But if you can't afford it, it's all on my free, on my time accounts. So you have no excuses. If you love President Trump, you have no excuses not to know what's going on at this point, especially. Because now you're in the rolling. He's throwing stuff out so much, it's rolling. And the Insurrection Act, all these things, that's already happened. That is exactly what the military, those fallbacks are your proofs for your friends or your family who are still either arguing with you or on the line, with whatever they are with you. That's your proof of that. So when you hear people say, well, what about martial law? What part of military government don't you understand? If you knew what was in place right now, you know that's already that. So that article is validation for all of you who are awake. That article is saying, hey, they're bringing it to surface now. Now they're bringing it to the focal points. Now we're going to start talking about it. The auto pen has been a subject with President Trump. And then also the National Guard. So the people being arrested, then today when he said, hey, if you got someone coming in your town hall and they're disrupting it, they're disruptors, they're chaos, kick them out. He's telling you, hey, we got full control of this nation. We the people have full control of it. The majority has spoken. We know what we want. We know what we're doing. All right. So he's telling you you're in good hands, and it's not Allstate. All right. Everything is right where it needs to be. But if you're still stuck, if you're still, responding or get mad at Fox News and all these others, you have no excuse not to know what's going on, because it's there. And especially if you love President Trump and you love our military, you have no excuse not to know what is taking place and what has taken place. It's full validity. And you will love President Trump even more, and you will love military even more. Full validity. So I can't believe I actually did a podcast in under 2 hours. I did. All right, but I do have to get going because I'll be going to Miami tomorrow, and I'll be with at Trump Doral with the Charlie Ward event and all that good stuff. But Trump Doral, it's a special place. Everything that President Trump is special. But anyways, it's been an interesting journey, and we're still going. Not going anywhere, but make sure people know that look, my link tree will be posted on the comment boxes of everything. But my link tree, there's a lot of people being gypped by fake pages. I finally got my blue badge on Derek Jonhson Country, which is also on my Derek Jonhson Country on Instagram. Now I post on there to show people here's my official pages. So if you'll go to Derek Jonhson Country, and you'll see me post that verifies and validates my link tree, that these are my official pages on my link tree that are over on my now blue badge page. And make sure that you share that with your friends and family, because my goodness, people have lost some ridiculous amounts of money, and I feel for people. I really do. I don't talk about QFS. I don't talk about your wallet or QFS wallet, all that stuff. I don't do that. I also don't type out like I look like I'm from Monty Python. I've seen some of these messages. Hello, dear. How art thou? I'm not Shakespeare. All right. I'm Slainspear. But my gosh, and I feel bad because so many people that have met me who love me personally. I love you too in the right kind of way, but you got to understand there's a lot of fakes and frauds out there, scammers, and I don't do that. I have been propositioned by everybody you name, but I've managed not to take the bait anywhere because that ain't how I operate. That's not what I'm here for. All right, so I have my books, I have the documents, I have some merchandise here and there because we come up with some cool ideas. All right, but I donate to President Trump a lot, so it's not like that. But people, the hilarious thing about being called a grifter, by the way, is that we're in a nation where it's called capitalism. And if you come up with an idea, you come up with a shirt or a T-shirt or a product or a brand. It's called capitalism. So, if I'm a grifter, then everybody who has a book on Amazon and the New York bestseller and Books A Million and Barnes & Noble, they're all grifters. All right. Republican, Democrat, Liberal, there's a bunch of people in books. And then also apparel. That means every company out there that has apparel is a grifter. All right. So that's pretty humorous because laws and orders are not grift. All right. Laws and orders are not conspiracy theories. All right. And everything I lead people to is straight up current. It's right there. And if it's a law from 20 or 30, 40 or 100 years ago, but it's being used right now, Doesn't matter. It's on the books. If it's on the books, it's able to use by law, president, whomever, civil operations, etc. So, but anyway. So make sure people see that. Make sure you tell your friends and family. If you've got someone telling you that they're talking to me, I'd say make sure. All right. A lot of people lost a lot of money. A lot of money. I heard one number was $100,000 in one quote unquote transaction, and I feel for those people. I really do. But it was not me. I don't do that. I don't have anything like that. I don't have anything remotely close to where you would even. You buy a T-shirt, $30. It gives you a T-shirt. You buy a book, for $25 or 52, 54, whatever we got it set for, with the big book, part 2. That's it. You get a product. You get something that you're paying. I don't have anything like that. So, it's wild. When I set up my Venmo and Cash App and all that, I set that up because so many people were faking Venmos and Cash Apps with my name that I said, hey, I have a Venmo and a Cash App, here they are. But I didn't say, hey, I need money, donate to me. I didn't say that. I established them where I will say, okay, well, I have one. Here's one here. All right, because I do have one with friends and family, and we pay each other that way for certain things. If it's like musicians or whatever it is, then most of them use Venmo and Cash App and all those things. So, yeah, I have one, but that ain't mine. All right, so... I feel for that, and where we are right now, we're in the glory, man. We're moving into the golden age. It's supposed to be all fun. It's supposed to be good. It's supposed to be positive. It's not supposed to be anything negative and all this other stuff. All right, so most of the people, the resistance have already faded anyway because they know they were wrong. They know they're atrocious, and I'd hate to be. I would want to look that dumb, personally. I would want to look like what you've seen out of some of these folks, but if they want to, hey, more power to us, more power to you, more power to patriots, more power to the common sense folks. So if you're going to be in Miami, I look forward to seeing you there. If you're going to be in Utah so let's see, May the 23rd and 24th when I'm in Provo, Utah, look forward to seeing you there. And also I'll be in Eagle, Idaho, the 27th and the 28th of May. So I look forward to seeing you all there. And then I'm going to go over to California leisurely. But if you're in California and I'm anywhere close to you, it'd be cool. I just sat with a big follower today. And actually gave me one of the coolest gifts I've ever seen in my life. I mean, just as a gift. I mean, willing to give this gift to someone. It's an actual magazine from the Senior Bowl, which was a game that was played in Mobile, Alabama for years. I can't make this up. I had to put this on video. But this is from a follower, great guy, partially blind in a different kind of manner. And we sat for about 2 or 3 hours a day and talked at a restaurant in Naples, Florida, and with his family, who I'm friends with. And when we left, he gave me this gift, and it's actual a magazine again, Senior Bowl. It is signed on the same page on their photos. It is signed by Paul Bryant, which is Bear Bryant, and John McKay, who was the coach of Southern California. It is under their photos. It is or above Paul Bryant's. It just signed, and he never signed Bear Bryant. He signed Paul Bryant, and that's how you know it's real and authentic. It's signed Paul Bryant and it's signed John McKay by their photos. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, that is like the magazine is 53 years old. All right, so yeah, that is legit right there. So that's why I love people. I love meeting people. This is why I do this. Is because I'm like President Trump. President Trump just said this the other day. He said, a lot of people have passions about certain things. He said, my passion is making deals. But it's also when other people are trying to screw you over with a bad deal, is to make a great deal and to etch them out. Well, that's me. When I see regurgitators and I see posers and I see people trying to look all flex and all this and all that and just trying to distract you and bring you here and sell you this and sell you that and do this and butt cream this and Irish cream that and all this other, and you're just like, it's chaos and it's this. I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, I don't need your money. You don't have to buy a shirt from me. You don't have to buy a book. At the end of the day, all my platforms, they're free. They're on my time, on my dime, on my schedule. Here's all your .gov, your .mil links. Here's the blueprint. Here it is. You wouldn't even have to buy a book. All you have to do is copy and paste it, put it over on your own little Word document. All right? So, bingo. So, little things like that. We'll see you guys soon. I think it'll be live this week. I don't know. If it is, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it'll be live this week, or there'll be videos taken, or I'll try to go live as well. But obviously, I'll be there like next Sunday right here on this. Whenever I'm wherever I'm at, if I'm traveling. I can't remember what day the 4th is, but I think that's Saturday. So no, that's Sunday. All right, so I may be on the road, but I'll pull over and do a podcast if I have to. But anyway, I will see you all soon. And love you, Naples, Florida. It's beautiful here. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. So.